My younger sister's academic performance was bizarrely peculiar. The moment I scored 500, she instantly racked up 510. When I skyrocketed to 600, her score immediately mutated into 610. Her grades were consistently higher than mine by exactly 10 points, but the moment I skipped an exam, her performance suffered an absolute, unstoppable nosedive. My grim suspicion was officially validated right then and there. My sister's academic success was directly bound to my own. Leveraging this bizarre anomaly, a completely insane, twisted idea flashed through my mind. What if I score over 740 points on the college entrance exam? Will my sister drop dead right on the spot? Leading up to the exam, I worked like a tireless, unstoppable beast, while my sister, on the other hand, spent every single day indulging in sheer pleasure and hedonism, relying entirely on me as her ultimate safety net. She became unbearably arrogant, acting completely above the law, and totally abandoned her studies, running wild with a toxic crowd everywhere whenever she got caught. She would throw an impatient tantrum, screaming, "Mom, Dad, stop nagging. Relax, the top scorer title is absolutely going to be mine." And I certainly didn't disappoint her blind confidence. During every mock exam, I steadily carried her to the absolute #1 spot in the entire grade. I wanted to keep her stranded on that fake pinnacle, living in a blissful, delusional dream, while I silently, step by step, crept closer to that lethal target of 741. Those grueling, exhausting days of the final semester of my senior year felt like a dull, jagged knife, hacking away piece by piece, and my frayed nerves every single day. Waking up before dawn, crashing at midnight, in between, except for scarce meals, and bathroom breaks, my entire existence was solving practice exams. I locked myself away, inside that suffocating room, a cramped space completely devoid of sunlight all year round, functioning like a machine that never, ever stops. Meanwhile, in the beautiful bedroom right next door, the echoing sounds of her chatting on the phone with her friends would occasionally drift in, or her exaggerated, hysterical laughter while watching movies. Sometimes she would deliberately blast the volume to the maximum, as if flaunting to my face that she could act this brazenly without consequences. But I couldn't care less. I had long since mastered the ability to block out all external noise. Inside my head, only a single echo resonated, 741. That absolute, definitive number served like a jagged iron nail driven straight into my heart. Whenever I felt like giving up, I'd press it deep, allowing the searing pain to snap me back into reality. In March, Lin Xiaoxiao began, frequently intruding into my private room. At first, I paid no attention, assuming she was just hunting for her things. But later, I detected something deeply unsettling. The way she glared at me had shifted, carrying a calculative, suspicious scrutiny. There was one specific time I was tackling the final boss-level math problem on a mock exam. She stood looming behind my back, staring intently at my scratch paper for an eternity. "Hey, brother, why are you grinding so hard lately?" I didn't raise my head, nor did my pen stall for a second. "It's all right. The college entrance exam is just around the corner. How could I not give it my all?" Lin Xiaoxiao leaned in even closer, desperately trying to read the exact details of what I was scribbling. "But before this, you never push yourself this aggressively." My heart violently skipped a beat, but my face remained completely unreadable. I deliberately let out a heavy sigh, faking absolute exhaustion. "What do you think? Do I have a choice? Mom and Dad made it clear. If I don't get into a top-tier university, they're cutting off my allowance entirely." Lin Xiaoxiao's tense expression visibly relaxed. The corner of her mouth even twisted into a mocking, condescending smirk. "Just with your pathetic brain, you actually expect to get into an elite school?" She spun around to leave, but before stepping out, she didn't miss the chance to throw in one last jab. "Don't overexert yourself. After all, the top score title is destined to be mine alone." I stared at her retreating figure in dead silence. The moment the door clicked shut, I gripped my pen, a cold smirk creeping onto my lips. "Perfect. Just keep harboring that exact arrogant attitude. The more you utterly look down on me, the safer my master plan remains." Yet the sharp paranoia of Lin Xiaoxiao didn't completely evaporate. Over the following days, she began openly and subtly probing into my exam preparation progress. She kept asking me which subject was my biggest nightmare, or demanding to know my predicted mock exam scores. Sometimes she would even launch deliberate psychological warfare right in front of my face, trying to shatter my mental fortitude. I adapted and played along flawlessly. During every subsequent mock exam, I meticulously manipulated my scores, making sure never to stand out too much, carefully maintaining a safe spot within the top 5 of the entire grade. This kept me off the radar while ensuring she wouldn't suspect a thing. My ultimate, lethal trump card was buried deep inside my heart. The most grueling, complex problem types and the most advanced, obscure solving techniques were strictly practiced in total isolation during the dead of night. The moment I finished, I'd shred the scratch paper to pieces and flush it down the toilet, leaving absolutely zero trace behind. One evening, as I was tackling an elite Olympiad exam paper, I suddenly caught muffled voices drifting from the living room. It was my mother and Lin Xiaoxiao having conversation. I silently cracked my door open to eavesdrop. Xiaoxiao, sweetie, do you think your brother is pushing himself too hard lately? I see him locking himself up in his room every single day, even skipping family meals. Lin Xiaoxiao let out a condescending smirk. Mom, what are you even stressing about? No matter how brutally hard he grinds, it changes absolutely nothing. After all, whatever score he manages to scrape up, mine will automatically be 10 points higher anyway. The harder he strives, won't that just push my own score to the absolute moon? True, so true. My daughter is truly a genius. Then let him destroy himself studying. It works perfectly to serve as your stepping stone. Hearing this vile exchange, I clenched my fist so hard that my fingernails dug deep into my flesh, yet my face remained a mask of pure calm. I softly clicked the door shut and immediately went back to my grind. One late evening in April, I was buried in exam prep as usual, inside my room, when a faint, scratching sound caught my attention. I perked up my ears to listen intently. It was the sound of incredibly stealthy, light footsteps, clearly terrified of being detected. Next came the agonizingly slow, agonizingly quiet turning of my doorknob. The realization struck me instantly. Lin Xiaoxiao was spying on me. I didn't turn my head at all. I maintained my facade of intense concentration, but in reality, I had already swapped my advanced materials for a basic worksheet, packed with completely standard elementary questions. My genuine, high-level study materials had long been securely locked away in the deepest, hidden compartment of my drawer. The door creaked open a tiny fraction. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of half of Lin Xiaoxiao's face. She was intensely scanning the items scattered across my desk. I deliberately let out a frustrated sigh, muttering to myself, how did I get this problem wrong again? This is way too brutal. The gap in the door silently closed, and her footsteps gradually faded away into the distance. I straightened my back, letting out a chilling, icy sneer. Lin Xiaoxiao, you're obsessive. Paranoia only proves you're drowning in guilt. You understand better than anyone else that those stellar grades never truly belong to you. You are nothing but a parasitic fraud. Without me, you are absolutely nothing. During the late May monthly exams, I secured a sharp 690 points, while Lin Xiaoxiao hit 700 points, seizing the absolute #1 rank in the entire grade. The day the results dropped, she threw a massive, explosive celebration at home. My parents swarmed her, showering her with endless praise, gushing about how she brought pure glory to our family. The dinner table was packed with her favorite dishes, while I sat silently in a dim corner, eating like an invisible ghost. My father slammed his chopsticks down, his face beaming with immense pride as he looked at Lin Xiaoxiao. Xiaoxiao, you did a phenomenal job this time. Just maintain this exact momentum, and a top-tier university is guaranteed for you. My daughter is an absolute genius. Of course, look at whose superior genetics she inherited. Lin Xiaoxiao cast a smug, triumphant smirk in my direction, her lips twisting into a mocking sneer. Hey, brother, you really need to step it up. You know, don't Let the gap between us widen too much, or mom and dad will lose. Face. I muttered a flat response without firing back, continuing to eat while a cold laugh echoed in my mind. Enjoy it while it lasts, trash. This is the absolute, final, glorious moment of your miserable life. That very night, I tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. My mind was fiercely visualizing every single scenario for the 2-day college entrance exam, anticipating everything that could unfold. The high-stakes June entrance exam finally arrived. Right on schedule. On the night of June 6th, Lin Xiao went out to hit the bars and drink heavily with her crew, claiming it was a pre-victory celebration. My mother didn't even try to stop her. Instead, she willingly handed her a fat stack of cash, cooing my hard-working daughter. Go unwind a bit. I witnessed this entire debauchery through a crack in my door, my heart dead silent without a single ripple. I just found it utterly pathetic. As for me on that very night, I was tucked into bed by 8 p.m. sharp, my alarm set for 6 a.m. the following morning. Lying there, an eerie, profound calm washed over me, making me feel like a master swordsman, patiently waiting to draw his blade. All my agonizing endurance would finally pay off tomorrow. The next morning, I woke up, perfectly on time, choked down a few quick bites of breakfast, and stepped out the door. My mother escorted Lin Xiao to her exam center, only tossing a half-hearted, superficial sentence. My way, do well on the exam. I simply nodded, without wasting a single word, thinking to myself that this was the absolute end. After today, our paths would split completely, never to cross again. My testing room was located in the ancient, dilapidated wing of the high school building. Right behind the dilapidated old building of my campus, was assigned to the 3rd floor right next to the window. The burning sunlight was perfectly beaming down upon me. I sat down, meticulously arranging each piece of my stationery, took a long, deep breath, closed my eyes, and silently vowed to myself, you've been waiting for this exact day for 18 grueling years. Don't you dare fail now. The bell signaling the start of the Chinese language and literature exam echoed sharply. The absolute second I flipped the exam paper open, my mind became clearer than it had ever been. Every single question felt as intimately familiar as an old friend. Every treacherous trap embedded in the reading comprehension section had already been completely anticipated by me. The essay prompt was exactly the type I had fiercely drilled countless times. I put pen to paper as if possessed by a divine force. The moment the Chinese exam concluded and I stepped out of the hall, Lin Xiao immediately rushed over to intercept me. She was heavily dolled up, in glamorous makeup, yet deep within her eyes flickered a faint, barely detectable trace of pure panic. She aggressively demanded to know how I did. I flatly replied it was all right. Lin Xiao furrowed her brows, pressing further. What do you mean all right? How far did you get? How many multiple choice questions? Did you mess up? Looking at her, I suddenly found it utterly hilarious. She was desperately trying to gauge my exact score to calculate her own hijack performance. I have no idea. The official answers aren't out yet. Lin Xiao pouted, completely unsatisfied with this response, but she didn't interrogate me any further. Turning on her heel, she stormed off. You stay out the hair. Retreating figure, silently mocking her. What's the fucking rush? The real results drop tomorrow. When that time comes, someone's going to truly lose their mind. That afternoon, right in the middle of the grueling mathematics exam, disaster struck out of nowhere. My stomach suddenly erupted into agonizing, violent pain. It could have been from a contaminated breakfast or perhaps the sheer, suffocating pressure finally crashing down on me. Cold sweat drenched my entire body, forcing me to collapse onto the desk for several agonizing seconds before I could barely regain consciousness. The proctor hurried over, whispering anxiously, "Are you all right, student? Do you need to visit the infirmary?" I violently shook my head, gritting my teeth as I choked out, fine. Are you kidding me? I had endured 18 long years solely for this ultimate showdown. Even if I were to collapse dead, I would draw my last breath right on this exam paper. I brutally dug my nails deep into my thigh. The piercing spike of pain temporarily derailed the sickening agony in my gut, forcing me to continue dominating the exam. The numbers and complex formulas blurred and swam before my eyes at times. But I stubbornly pushed through, relying on pure muscle memory to obliterate every single question, one by one. The final question, the absolute nightmare of the exam. I deployed 3 entirely different methods to double-check my calculations, confirming absolute perfection before finally laying my pen down. When I stumbled out of the examination hall, I was on the brink of total collapse. I found a deserted, quiet corner and squatted down, desperately trying to recover for a long while. Lin Xiao shot me a text, demanding to know how the math section went. I fired back with just 2 flat words. As usual. She instantly replied with a smug, gloating emoji, clearly convinced that she had the upper hand once again. Staring at that emoji, I found it utterly pathetic. Ignorance is bliss was coined specifically for delusional clowns like her. The following day was science and English, and my physical condition had mostly rebounded. These 2 subjects were my absolute bread and butter, especially science. The heavyweight physics problems, chemical reactions, and biological genetics. Every single one of them was a familiar layout that I had utterly demolished countless times. I tore through the paper smooth as running water, leaving myself a massive 20-minute cushion. Just for review, I cross-examined every single answer, at least twice, guaranteeing that 0 slip-ups could humanly occur. As for English, it was an absolute breeze. There was practically no way for the graders to find a reason to dock a single point. The moment the final bell rang and I stepped out of that examination hall, I stood directly at the entrance. Lifting my head, I glared straight at the blinding, scorching sun. Instead of flinching, I stood tall and unyielding, letting the intense heat wash over my face. 18 long, suffocating years, and I had finally shattered the cage. Lin Xiao, as expected, was the absolute first person to ambush me. Today, she was dressed in bizarrely flashy, vibrant clothes, strutting like a prideful peacock. Her eyes gleamed with pure, unadulterated greed as she demanded to know my performance. Phenomenal. Better than ever. In my entire life, I have never crushed an exam this hard. Lin Xiao's eyes flashed with intense brilliance, as if she had just struck a massive gold mine. She spun on her heel and sprinted off to flaunt the news to our parents. My brother said he absolutely destroyed the exam, so my score is guaranteed to be even more insane. Staring at her ecstatic, clueless, retreating figure, a smile crept onto my face, the cold smirk of a patient hunter watching his prey completely snare itself in the trap. Lin Xiao, do you have any idea what you look like right now? You look exactly like a brainless moth sprinting into a raging wildfire, utterly convinced it's heading toward the glorious sun. During the summer break following the college entrance exam, Lin Xiao completely lost all self-restraint. She proudly beat her chest, guaranteeing our parents that she would seize a spot among the absolute top scorers in the entire province. Thi đại học Lâm Tiểu Tiểu hoàn toàn buông thả bản thân nó vô ngực, đảm bảo với bố mẹ là sẽ vào top đầu toàn tỉnh, and secured a massive, jaw-dropping advance on her allowance. Not only did she instantly upgrade her smartphone and laptop to the most high-end, luxury models on the market, but she also took the hard-earned savings our parents slaved away for, running off with a toxic group of superficial friends, to blow it all on a reckless, hedonistic spending spree. Her social media profiles were updated daily, completely filled with nothing but excessive partying and extravagant lifestyles, without a single care or worry in the world. Late one evening, while endlessly scrolling through my feed, I stumbled upon her latest post, a picture. Without a single care in the world, I was just scrolling through my feed one evening when I stumbled upon its post, a striking photo that immediately caught my eye, accompanied by the dynamic caption, "The new top scorer is celebrating early." Beneath it, a massive wave of people were aggressively liking and commenting. I stared at those superficial comments and could only find the entire scene utterly delusional. Meanwhile, when I wanted to visit the countryside to see my grandfather and asked my parents for a tiny travel allowance before I could even finish my sentence, my mother cut me off viciously. She didn't even bother to lift her eyes, her tone dripping with absolute disdain. Visit? Visit who? The family is completely broke. Can't you see, Xiao? Needs every penny right now? I stared at her oblivious, uncaring face, feeling a profound sense of disgust. When it came to me, not a single dime would ever be spared. But for Lin Xiao, they would burn through cash like trash. These are my biological parents. My father, lounging on the sofa watching TV, didn't even turn his head as he threw in another heartless jab. If you're so desperate to go, figure out a way yourself. Don't expect a single handout from this house. I didn't utter another word. Turning on my heel, I retreated to my room. Early the next morning, I headed straight to a construction site to find a brutal job hauling bricks. The unforgiving, merciless sun baked down on me until I was dizzy and nauseous, yet I stubbornly gritted my teeth and endured. It took me half a month of agonizing labor to finally scrape together enough cash for travel expenses and to buy a decent gift for my grandfather. Those 2 weeks were easily among the most torturous, hellish days of my entire existence. After half a month, I managed to earn just over 1,000 yuan, barely enough to cover my round-trip bus ticket and purchase some basic health supplements for my grandfather. The day the exam scores were released perfectly coincided with Lin Xiao's grand 18th birthday coming-of-age celebration. In order to bask in front of a massive crowd, crowning herself at the absolute peak, most glorious moment of her life, she threw a lavish, obscenely extravagant gala. Our extended relatives, neighbors, and even my mother's corporate superiors were all cordially invited. Inside the opulent banquet hall, the deafening sounds of congratulations echoed continuously without pause, of celebratory toasts echoing relentlessly through the room. A distant relative raised his glass high, stepping right up to my father with a beaming smile. "Brother Lin, your family is truly blessed, raising twins, and both of them turning out so extraordinarily phenomenal." Another relative immediately chimed in, her tone dripping with underlying malice. "The eldest son is nothing but a boring bookworm who lacks any real-world social skills. It's Xiao who is truly mind-blowing, brilliant, sharp, and 100 times superior to her brother." The younger generation swarmed Lin Xiao like stars worshipping the moon. One younger female cousin was practically green with envy, her eyes blazing. "Sister Xiao, you're literally insane. With one hand, you secured admission to Tsinghua and Peking University, and with the other, you've scored a total. How do you have a boyfriend? You're the ultimate definition of a winner. Quick, finish your makeup. Cease." We all want to witness the historic moment. The provincial top scorer is officially crowned. Don't be so impatient. If she's truly ranked at the absolute top of the province, the admissions offices of Tsinghua and Peking University will call her personally to lock her in before anyone else. The exact second those words left her mouth, a phone suddenly began ringing frantically. But it wasn't hers, it was mine. Under the utterly bewildered stares of the entire crowd, I answered one high-stakes call after another. The admissions office of Tsinghua University, the admissions office of Peking University, and elite recruiters from several other top-tier Ivy-level institutions, all desperately pitching why I should choose them. Lin Xiao's eyes went wide with pure shock, glaring intensely at her own completely silent, lifeless phone. Desperately trying to salvage her shattered dignity, she gritted her teeth and forced out a pathetic excuse. The absolute best things always arrive at the very end. Finally, the official online score portal went live. The anxious crowd swarmed around, urging Lin Xiao to log in. I silently retreated to a dim corner and pulled up the portal on my own device. Even though the outcome was mathematically guaranteed, the raw anticipation of the moment caused cold sweat to pool in the palms of my hands. My mother turned to me first, her voice dripping with pure indifference as she demanded my score. I simply turned my screen around for the entire room to witness, announcing with deadpan calm, I scored 741 points. The entire banquet hall erupted into a frenzy of shocked gasps. I forcefully suppressed the tidal wave of absolute ecstasy raging inside my chest, maintaining a stone-faced expression. I did it. I actually fucking did it. My mother froze in utter shock for a split second, let out a forced, tight nod without even bothering to look closer. and immediately spun around to look at Lin. Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao. Your brother scored 741. Hurry up and check your score. If his is that high, then yours is guaranteed to be 751. Xiao Xiao. Her voice was violently trembling with pure, unadulterated excitement. Hurry up, Xiao Xiao. Your score is guaranteed to be even higher. Lin. Xiao Xiao was completely cornered by the crowd, with absolutely nowhere to run. Shaking uncontrollably, she tapped the verification button. The very next second, her face instantly turned pale, displaying an expression as utterly grotesque as someone who had just swallowed a live fly. Flashing brightly on the screen were 3 brilliant red digits, 751. Lin Xiao Xiao's voice completely broke, and the entire surrounding crowd fell into a suffocating, dead silence. A distant relative, totally oblivious to the reality of the situation, was still aggressively sucking up to her. Oh my God, 751 points. Exactly 10 points higher than her brother. Xiao Xiao is an absolute prodigy. Wait, if I remember correctly, the absolute maximum perfect score for the college entrance exam is only 750, isn't it? The atmosphere instantaneously froze into solid ice. That brat was completely struck with terror, cold sweat instantly, ruining her flawless, heavily applied makeup, leaving it utterly smudged. This has to be a system glitch. Too many people are checking their scores, so the server crashed. She frantically refreshed the page, her finger practically stabbing a hole straight through the screen. Once, twice, 3 times. That horrific, impossible number 751 remained, mocking her, firmly cemented right in the total score box like an unyielding iron nail. Someone suggested trying a different phone just to be absolutely sure. Lin Xiao Xiao, desperately grasping at straws like a drowning victim, snatched up someone else's device. The result remained an unforgiving 751 points. That impossible extra point felt like a brutal, thunderous slap straight across. Her face. Right at that exact moment, the massive doors of the banquet hall were forcefully flung open. Several uniformed police officers and high-ranking officials from the Department of Education strode in, carrying incredibly grim, stone-cold expressions. The leaders scanned the room, demanding in a deep, booming voice, "Who among you is Lin Xiao Xiao?" The examination board has detected a severe, impossible anomaly in the scores. You are heavily suspected of maliciously hacking the database and committing egregious, felonious fraud. Please come with us immediately to assist in a criminal investigation. Lin Xiao Xiao was paralyzed with such sheer terror that her knees buckled, sending her crashing straight onto the floor, her face instantly turning as white as a ghost. My parents were completely blindsided by the chaotic scene, yet their very first instinct wasn't to comfort their golden child. Instead, they instantly looked for a pathetic scapegoat. In a fit of absolute, blind panic, my mother violently shoved me forward, pointing directly at my face as she shrieked, "It was him. He did it." He was clearly consumed by jealousy toward his sister, so he hacked into the system and altered her score to destroy her. Officers, arrest him and investigate him. This has absolutely nothing to do with my precious daughter. Unbelievable. Once again, this was the exact, predictable move. In their eyes, I was nothing more than a disposable shield for their precious daughter. Yep, this is exactly the kind of biological parents I have. In the absolute most critical crunch time, they didn't even hesitate for a split second to use me as a human shield. No matter how completely delusional and laughable their reasoning, no matter how totally unhinged their logic was, as long as they could protect their absolute golden child, sacrificing my life was nothing to them. My heart had grown completely dead and cold, but in this very moment, I actually felt an overwhelming wave of pure relief. I violently swatted my mother's hand away, staring coldly at this pathetic pack of clowns putting on a circus show. I didn't hack anything. I am the official, undisputed top scorer of the entire province's STEM track. Lin Xiaoxiao over there is the one you want. The person who magically racked up that impossible score of 751 is her, and her alone. My father flew into a blind rage, storming forward to brutally slap me, but I instantly caught his wrist in a vice grip. My piercing, icy glare caused him to recoil in sudden terror. Go ahead and try touching me. The federal authorities are standing right behind my back. Right now, I am apprised that Tsinghua and Peking University are desperately fighting over, and the prime target the mass media is competing to cover. Lay a single finger on me and see what happens. From this exact defining moment onward, inside this godforsaken house, absolutely no one could chain me down, and no one would ever possess the power to bully me again. This grand coming-of-age gala, which was originally meticulously orchestrated to flex her vanity, completely devolved into an absolute, utter farce. Lin Xiaoxiao was dragged away to cooperate with the criminal investigation, leaving behind a catastrophic, chaotic disaster. A scandal of this magnitude was fundamentally impossible to suppress. The absolute second 751 point score hit the system. The internet instantly exploded. This specific topic became the absolute #1 trending search across every single social media platform by that very night. The entire online community was aggressively pulling up front row seats to watch the clown show unfold. Someone commented, "Talk about pure, unadulterated greed. A greedy snake trying to swallow an entire elephant. She obviously paid for a score change and overshot her budget." Another user posted, "Even if you're going to cheat, you need to use a single brain cell. The absolute maximum perfect score is literally 750, yet she somehow conjured up 751. Is she trying to take the examiners for absolute fools? Or is she just publicly mocking the security database?" Netizens aggressively tracked down Lin Xiaoxiao's personal social media accounts, only to discover that for the past 6 months, she had done nothing but party, travel, and flex online, completely abandoning any semblance of academic life. Public outrage reached a boiling point, with everyone relentlessly roasting Lin Xiaoxiao. Everyone automatically assumed she had used powerful backroom connections to illegally alter her grades, only to accidentally overdo it with a ridiculous typo. I scrolled through that endless wave of savage comments, experiencing a profound, indescribable rush of absolute vindication deep within my soul. For 18 agonizing years, I had patiently starved myself just to feast on this exact moment. 18 long years, and the world is finally about to see the truth. Clutched Lin Xiaoxiao's official social media handles, only to expose the shocking truth. For the past 6 months, she did nothing but party extravagantly across the globe, completely abandoning her academic responsibilities. Altogether, the online community completely swarmed, throwing fierce backlash directly at Lin Xiaoxiao, as everyone collectively suspected she weaponized backroom connections to manipulate her test scores, only to recklessly overplay her hand. As I endlessly scrolled through those savage comments, an unexplainable wave of absolute, triumphant ecstasy surged deep within my chest. For 18 agonizing years, I slaved away, waiting for this exact, glorious moment. 18 long years, and the absolute truth was finally unveiled before everyone's eyes. Finally granted everyone the raw reality. The results of the official investigation were unleashed remarkably fast. Lin Xiaoxiao's grading sheet was heavily compromised. Her multiple-choice assessment had somehow triggered a bizarre, inexplicable extra point compared to the standard rubric, causing her final cumulative score to be mathematically flawed, even though the board uncovered zero direct evidence, proving she physically tampered with the scan sheet. The Department of Education, in order to enforce absolute academic integrity, made the executive decision to deploy an emergency backup exam paper forcing her to retake the entire test in absolute isolation. 547 had absolutely anything. The scandalous news spread back home. Lin Xiaoxiao, who was lounging lazily on the sofa, scrolling through her phone, instantly bolted upright the exact second she heard she had to retake the exam. Her face drained of all color, turning deathly pale. What the hell do you mean a retake? Why on earth do I have to take it again? My score is absolutely real. The system is the only thing that's glitched. My father sat nearby, his face dark and grim as he boomed in a harsh whisper. Keep your damn voice down. Do you want the entire neighborhood to hear you? My mother, pacing back and forth in an absolute panic, frantically tried to pacify Lin Xiaoxiao while desperately brainstorming a backup plan. Xiaoxiao, don't lose your mind just yet. If you have to retake it, then so be it. You're a brilliant genius, so you'll easily pass with flying colors. But Lin Xiaoxiao went completely hysterical, throwing a violent tantrum. All over the house, she sobbed, screamed, and aggressively demanded that I be dragged along to take the exam with her. As long as he comes with me, I need him to sit right next to me. She lunged forward, violently clawing at my arm, her fingernails digging deep into my flesh as her eyes turned bloodshot and terrifying. Tomorrow, you're in that exam hall with me. Do you fucking hear me? I brutally wrenched my arm from her grip, my voice cracking like solid ice. My exam is officially over. Why the hell should I retake it just because you have to? Lin Xiaoxiao froze, staring up at me, with eyes full of profound, shocked suspicion, clearly never expecting that I would ever dare to defy her demands. My mother instantly charged over to defend her, shrieking, "What the hell is wrong with your attitude? Your sister is going through a total crisis, and you refuse to lift a finger to help her. Son, this is a matter of our entire family's dignity and social standing. What's the big deal if you just sit through the exam with Xiaoxiao?" One more time, I looked at them, finding the entire display simultaneously hilarious and utterly pathetic. The family's so-called dignity? No, that was strictly Lin Xiaoxiao's personal vanity. None of these toxic delusions had ever had anything to do with my life. I flatly rejected them, spun on my heel, retreated to my room, and slammed the door shut, locking it tight. No matter how violently they pounded on the wood or hurled venomous insults outside, I refused to budge. The department's demand is now tightly bound up with to do with me anymore. I flatly rejected their desperate pleas, turning my back on them to march straight into my room and throw the deadbolt shut. No matter how violently they pounded on the wood or screamed bloody murder from the hallway, I refused to breach the lock. Their demands, that utterly absurd demand, was naturally and instantly rejected by the Department of Education. In the end, Lin Xiaoxiao, under the intense, microscopic scrutiny of the entire city, was forced to walk into that exam room completely alone. The testing site was set up inside a heavily guarded room at the municipal board office. Security cameras were recording 24/7 and 3 hypervigilant proctors monitored her every single move throughout the entire process, deadly afraid that she might try to pull another slick stunt. The final outcome, as expected, was an absolute, unmitigated disaster. Her performance was shockingly horrific. Her grand total score for the retake was a miserable 157. That pathetic number wasn't even high enough to match her usual random guessing. Her actual baseline academic level was barely around 300 points to begin with, and for the past 6 months, she had done nothing but obsess over romance and live in a delusional fantasy of being the top scorer, completely abandoning her textbooks. The day the official retake scores dropped, I was grinding away at the construction site, hauling bricks. I caught a flurry of text messages from my classmates, screaming that Lin Xiaoxiao's official retake score had crashed down to an abysmal 157 points. I froze in place for a solid second before bursting into a wild, hysterical roar of laughter. My fellow laborers genuinely thought I had suffered a severe heat stroke and quickly handed me a bottle of water. I frantically waved my hands, choking out, "I'm fine, really. I'm just absolutely ecstatic." This high-stakes retake had completely and brutally ripped away her final shred of camouflage. First, a God tier 751, followed immediately by a trash tier 157. The sheer, staggering contrast caused the entire internet to violently blow up. The online comments from netizens were all lethally sharp. Someone posted, "A measly 157 points? Now, this is her actual brainless academic level." Another user stated, "The truth is now as clear as daylight. That previous 751 score was undeniably a product of pure, filthy cheating." Lin Xiaoxiao, utterly crumbling under the relentless cyber attacks, desperately attempted to publish her old report cards from before her senior year to validate herself. The catastrophic result? The internet community immediately dissected her records, exposing the highly suspicious, anomalous spike in her grades throughout the second semester of her senior year. Meanwhile, prior to that, she was consistently hard-stuck in the pathetic 300-point range, unable to ever lift her head. This crucial evidence made the entire public even more absolutely certain this fraud had been aggressively cheating her way through her entire senior year. Out of sheer curiosity, internet sleuths went a step further and tracked down my personal academic history, dating all the way from elementary school straight through high school. My verified performance in every single major examination was systematically dug up. From my childhood to the present day, I had consistently maintained a vice grip on the top 3 spots of my entire grade. This, the internet declared, was the undisputed, real academic god. Had been systematically cheating ever since her senior year of high school. Furthermore, eagle-eyed netizens managed to exhume my own historical transcripts spanning from primary school straight through high school. The data from every single major examination was meticulously re-examined, proving I consistently ranked within the absolute top 3. I was the genuine, undisputed genius turn, whose unyielding throne stood as rock solid as a mountain. One user commented, "Are they seriously biological siblings? How the hell is the gap this monumental?" Another netizen added, "One is an absolute god-tier Ivy genius, while the other can barely even scratch a passing grade." Staring at that chaotic wave of comments, my mind was a storm of bitter emotions. There was a time I genuinely believed that mastering my academics would finally force my parents to acknowledge me. Only later did the brutal reality hit me. No matter how flawlessly I demolished every exam, in their blind eyes, I would never measure up to Lin Xiaoxiao, because what they desperately craved wasn't an elite, successful son, but a disposable tool destined to sacrifice himself for the sake of their precious daughter. The fair-weather teachers and fake friends who used to aggressively worship Lin Xiaoxiao now avoided her like an absolute plague. Even my parents couldn't step outside without being brutally humiliated and pointed at. The entire neighborhood was viciously gossiping behind their backs, whispering, "Turns out that families Golden Girl is a brainless fraud relying on filthy cheating to scam everyone this whole time. What an absolute, utter disgrace." During that agonizing period, Lin Xiaoxiao completely locked herself away in her room, terrified of facing a single soul, living exactly like a pathetic street rat hiding in the shadows. Her curtains were tightly drawn 24/7. Even her meals had to be left silently at the door by my mother because she refused to see anyone. Meanwhile, gripping my official admission letter to the prestigious Tsinghua and Peking University medical track, I packed my final belongings to head to the countryside to stay with my grandfather. I just needed to survive until the end of August for the new semester to begin, and I would be completely, entirely free. Or so I damn Well thought. Summer in the countryside was as suffocatingly hot as a steamer basket. Yet I experienced a profound sense of absolute, uninterrupted peace. My grandfather's ancient, rustic home was nestled quietly. At the base of the mountain, a humble three-room mud brick cottage. Right before the front entrance stood a massive, weathered pagoda tree, and the wood burning. Stove sent plumes of gray smoke drifting into the sky, filling the air with a cozy warmth. This, and only this, was my true, genuine sanctuary. From the moment I gained conscious memory, I had been unceremoniously abandoned here. My parents fabricated a pathetic excuse, claiming the countryside air was pristine and perfect, to nurture my fragile health. But in reality, they simply viewed me as an annoying nuisance and wanted Lin Xiaoxiao to completely monopolize every ounce of their affection and family resources. My mere existence meant she had to share the spotlight, creating unwanted competition. My grandfather never uttered a single toxic word about my parents to me. Instead, he silently poured his soul into raising me, teaching me characters and reading books, constantly reminding me that in this harsh life, a man must rely solely on himself. The one mantra he repeated the most was, education is the absolute, only golden ticket out of poverty for a child born with nothing. I engraved that life-changing advice deep into my very marrow. I means facing an unforgiving, hyper-competitive battleground. My grandfather never uttered a single malicious word about my parents to me. He simply, silently protected me, teaching me how to recognize characters and read books, always reminding me that a true man must carve his own path. The core philosophy he preached the most was that education is the absolute, solitary gateway for underprivileged children to change their fate. I permanently etched this life motto deep into the marrow of my bones. I stayed with my grandfather for over 20 blissful days. Every single morning, I would wake up early to help him feed the chickens. During the cool morning hours, I would lose myself in my books out in the courtyard. In the afternoon, I would stroll with him out toward the sprawling fields. Once we arrived, I would sit quietly beneath the shade of a massive pagoda tree to escape the heat, while my grandfather regaled me with captivating stories of the ancient days. He spoke of my father's childhood, laughing about how fiercely mischievous he used to be, and reminisced about when my mother first married into the family, detailing how incredibly hardworking she was back then. Listening to those completely foreign, distant tales felt exactly like I was hearing about a stranger's family, because in my own scarred memories, my parents had never, ever been those kind of people. One clear evening, as we were sitting outside, enjoying the cool night breeze in the courtyard, the moonlight was blindingly bright. My grandfather suddenly turned to me and asked, "How did you do on that massive college entrance exam?" I paused to reflect for a brief moment, offering a completely honest response. "I think I did exceptionally well." "Grandpa," he nodded slowly, a profound, sharp glint flashing within his heavily clouded eyes as he gazed up at the shimmering moon. After a long, heavy silence, he softly murmured, "As long as you did well, that's all that matters. That's all that matters." He let out a heavy sigh, his voice growing slightly raspy. "I've accomplished nothing of note in my entire miserable life. All my hopes and dreams are anchored entirely on you." I lower my head, a sharp sting piercing the bridge of my nose as tears threatened to spill. From my childhood to this very day, he was the absolute only human being who had ever spoken to me with such warmth. He was the only soul who genuinely, fiercely wished for my success. "Grandpa, just wait until I graduate from university and secure a high-paying job. I'm going to bring you to the city to live in pure luxury with me." He waved his hand dismissively, laughing with the pure innocence of a child. "The bustling city? I never fit in there. Just knowing your heart is in the right place is more than enough for me." That very night, as I lay on the rustic, earth-baked bed of the ancient cottage, listening to the soothing symphony of insects right outside my window, I silently vowed to myself, the moment the official admissions drop, everything will be completely set in stone. I am going to show the entire world that I, Lin Tian, am absolutely not a worthless nobody to be pushed around, nor am I a pathetic stepping stone for anyone else's glory. By August 12th, with barely half a month remaining before the official university registration, I was sweating out in the courtyard helping my grandfather dry the corn harvest, pouring basket after basket of gleaming golden kernels onto the woven bamboo mats and spreading them evenly under the blazing sun. Suddenly, the phone in my pocket began vibrating violently. The caller ID displayed my mother's number. I froze in absolute disbelief. She practically never, ever proactively reached out to me. The last time she had deigned to give me a call was right before the Gaokao, aggressively interrogating me about what kind of score I could realistically achieve, her tone dripping with transparent calculation and manipulation. I swiped to answer, and from the other side of the line, a sudden wave of hysterical sobbing erupted. My mother's voice was hoarse, ragged, and completely consumed by absolute panic. Admissions office demanding to know what kind of score I was projected to pull off in the upcoming entrance exams. Her tone was dripping with localized paranoia and malicious calculation. The second I picked up, the line exploded with hysterical sobbing, my mother's voice sounding incredibly raspy, desperate, and urgent. You need to get back home right this instant. Your father is critically ill, and the doctors say he might not make it through the night. My heart instantly sank like a lead weight, and the sickle, clutched in my hand, nearly slipped straight out of my grip and crashed to the ground. I demanded, what kind of illness does he have? Which hospital is he admitted to? My mother did nothing but wail hysterically, completely ignoring my questions. She just kept repeating the exact same frantic command. Just get back here now. Hurry. Before abruptly slamming down the phone. I stood completely frozen in place, my mind a chaotic, tangled mess. My grandfather stepped out from the house, and as I relayed the urgent news, the expression on his weathered face instantly shifted. He frantically urged me to pack my belongings and rush home. No matter what they've done, he is still your biological father. You need to go back and see what's happening. I nodded silently, bolting to my room to throw a few clothes into my backpack. Right before I managed to walk out, my grandfather hurried after me, shoving a heavy, tightly wrapped cloth bundle into my hands. Take this, he insisted. It's my life savings. Use it for the emergency. I peeled open the cloth, only to find a thick stack of crumbled, small denomination bills. Adding it all up, it couldn't have been more than 2,000 yuan. This was the money he had scraped together by selling eggs and homegrown vegetables, piece by painful piece, saving it meticulously as his absolute final safety net for old age. I desperately tried to force it back into his hands, but he had already turned his back on me and walked back into the cottage, his severely hunched silhouette framed against the worn doorway looked devastatingly fragile and frail. I gripped that cloth bundle with everything I had, a burning wave of tears stinging my eyes. The journey from the village to the nearest town required a grueling 2-hour bus ride. From that town to the provincial capital took another 3 hours by train, where I then had to transfer to a high-speed rail line. The entire agonizing journey was going to take nearly 10 exhausting hours. I booked a seat on the absolute earliest available ride, sitting on that violently jolting, bumpy bus, watching the rural landscape rapidly blur past the window. The fog in my mind began to clear, and cold logic started to return. Something was off. There were far too many glaring red flags. My mother's frantic wailing was entirely too theatrical, so incredibly exaggerated, that it felt like a poorly rehearsed script. Furthermore, she completely omitted what illness my father was supposedly suffering from, failed to mention which hospital he was at, and didn't provide a single shred of concrete medical details regarding his condition. All she did was aggressively pressure me to come back. If he were genuinely on his deathbed, her natural instinct would be to scream, "Your father is at this specific hospital. Get there immediately," rather than shouting, "Hurry up and come back." Come back to where? If he were actively fighting for his life in an emergency room, how on earth did she have the leisure to lounge at home making frantic phone calls to me? On top of that, there was an underlying edge to her voice, an inexplicable, desperate urgency. That raw panic didn't sound like the behavior of a wife terrified of losing her husband. It sounded exactly like someone trying to lure a target into a trap. How on earth did she have the spare time to comfortably lounge at home, dialing my number? Furthermore, the distinct inflection. In her voice carried an unexplainable, hyperventilating urgency. That specific desperation didn't sound like a panicked wife agonizing over her critically ill husband, but rather resembling, as if she was petrified that I might refuse to come back. The more I analyzed it, the more completely sketchy it felt. I dialed my father's personal cell phone. It was busy. I dialed one more time, but it was still busy. I immediately changed my strategy and called a senior colleague. At my father's office, an uncle figure I had met a few times. I politely inquired, "Uncle, has anything catastrophic happened to my dad recently?" The man on the other end sounded genuinely baffled. "Huh. Your dad treated the entire office to a massive dinner last week. He was in perfect peak health. Why do you ask?" "Oh, it's nothing major. I must have misheard a rumor." I fabricated a random, casual excuse to kill the call and hung up. As expected, it was an absolute, orchestrated scam to lure me back. I leaned back into the worn seat, staring blankly at the endless, rolling mountain ranges passing outside the window. The heavy rock crushing my chest finally lifting. It wasn't because I was a cold-blooded, heartless monster. It was simply because I understood this toxic family far too well. If my father were truly on his deathbed, Lin Xiaoxiao would have already flooded social media with hysterical crying videos, weaponizing her victimhood to harvest massive amounts of online sympathy. There was absolutely no way she would remain completely radio silent like this. If this whole emergency was a sick trap, then what on earth was their actual, ultimate motive for tricking me into returning? It took me several quiet hours to systematically dismantle and piece together this entire puzzle, and the answer quickly became blindingly obvious. The public scandal surrounding Lin Xiaoxiao was entirely too catastrophic. That infamous, laughable 751 point score was still actively pinned to the top of the trending charts. Even if she forced herself to repeat her senior year, she would never get into an elite university. Because without riding on my coattails, she is an absolute, talentless nobody. Meanwhile, I was right on the verge of stepping into Tsinghua and Peking University to ignite a brilliant new chapter of my life, completely and irrevocably escaping this abusive, suffocating swamp. There was absolutely no way they would ever allow that to happen. In their sick, twisted minds, the singular, solitary reason for my existence was to serve as a disposable stepping stone for Lin Xiaoxiao. A mindless tool, a personal blood bank. The moment my mind fully processed this horrific reality, the lingering panic instantly dissolved, replaced by the chilling, calculated calmness of an elite apex predator patiently waiting for his prey to blindly stumble into a lethal trap. Only this time, the positions of the predator and the prey were going to be violently inverted. If you monsters want to put on a theatrical performance, then I will happily play along with your little game until the bitter end. However, the final, closing script will be written exclusively by my hand. While on the train, I used the money my grandfather gave me to purchase a cheap burner phone along with a high-capacity power bank. I juiced up both devices to 100 battery capacity, installed a stealth video recording application that automatically synced and uploaded all footage directly to the cloud server, and tested it meticulously 3 times to guarantee absolutely zero room for failure. I then reached out to a few of my future university roommates whom I had recently connected with through the incoming freshman group chat. I fired off a message. A cheap budget, backup smartphone, and a heavy-duty portable power bank, completely charging both devices to maximum capacity. I then installed an automated surveillance application that records footage and immediately uploads it to a secure cloud server. After stress testing it 3 separate times to guarantee absolute flawless execution, I reached out to a few future university classmates and prospective roommates, whom I had recently befriended in an online group chat. I drafted a message and is socially typing out, whom I had met inside the group. I hastily messaged, briefly outlining the explosive situation. I told them that if 48 hours went by and they completely lost contact with me, they needed to immediately call the cops on my behalf. At the same time, I shared my real-time GPS location with them. It was always better to be fully armed and prepared. Damn, bro, your family dynamic is absolutely mental. One of them texted back, but don't sweat it, we've totally got your back. Just keep your head up. If anything goes sideways, we'll blast the police immediately. Stay safe and keep us posted. Staring at those supportive messages, a sudden wave of genuine warmth flooded my chest. Complete strangers whom I had never even met in person were instantly ready to protect me, while my so-called flesh and blood were actively plotting to drag me down to hell. The pure irony of this world is absolutely disgusting. By the time I finally arrived back at the house, it was already late evening the following day. The dying sunset bled a toxic, golden-orange hue across the worn facade of the old housing complex. Gripping the handle of my luggage, I stood at the base of the building, staring up at the exact place where I had spent 12 agonizing years of my life. A wretched place that had never, not even once, offered me a sliver of belonging. Taking a slow, deep breath, I marched up the stairs and knocked. The door swung open, revealing my mother's face. Her eyes were bloodshot and swollen, perfectly mimicking someone who had just survived a horrific crying fit. The second her eyes landed on me, she froze before instantly plastering on. A sickeningly sweet, sycophantic smile. Oh, shouty yawn. You're finally back. Hurry up, come inside, come inside. This bizarre, over-the-top hospitality made my skin crawl. From my childhood to the present day, when had she ever deigned to welcome me with such enthusiasm? I walked into the apartment, keeping my expression entirely deadpan and unreadable, rapidly scanning the living room. My father was casually lounging on the sofa watching TV, his hand firmly clutching the remote control. His complexion looked perfectly robust and healthy, absolutely nowhere near the brink of death. I halted right at the entryway, my hand still resting on the handle of my suitcase, and asked in a completely flat, monotone voice, I thought you said Dad was dying. Why the hell is he sitting here, healthy as a horse, watching TV? The cozy atmosphere in the living room instantaneously shattered into dead ice. My father snapped his head up to glare at me, his face turning slightly flushed. With uncomfortable guilt, the fake smile plastered on my mother's face violently twitched, but she immediately scrambled to damage control the situation. Oh, it was just a massive false alarm. Yesterday, your father genuinely looked like he was at death's door, but after we rushed him to the clinic for a thorough checkup, the doctors said it was nothing serious. Since you're about to leave for Tsinghua and Peking University anyway, your father and I figured we should bring you home so we could have one final beautiful family reunion. Hearing those specific words, one beautiful family, roll off her tongue felt absolutely. The superficial smile plastered across my mother's face instantly froze, but she immediately scrambled to damage control. Oh, it was just a false alarm. Yesterday, your father was genuinely feeling terrible, but after we rushed him to the clinic for a thorough checkup, it turned out to be nothing serious at all. Your parents were just thinking that since you're about to leave for Beijing, we desperately wanted to call you back home so we could have one last complete family reunion. Hearing those specific words, complete family reunion, spill so effortlessly from her deceitful lips was completely, disgustingly ironic. I chose not to expose her lie right then, merely giving a cold, silent nod. As I stepped fully into the apartment, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted Lin Xiao Xiao lounging at the far end of the sofa. She was curled up miserably in a tight corner, her hair a chaotic, matted mess, her complexion completely sallow and sickly, with two deep, dark, hollow bruises under her eyes. Compared to the spoiled, arrogant golden princess from just a few short months ago, she looked like a completely different person. The absolute contrast was jarring. The moment she noticed me walking across the room, she jerked her head up, her gaze a toxic swirl of complex emotions, dripping with venomous hatred, paralyzing fear, and an underlying desperate edge that I couldn't quite fathom. I acted completely oblivious to her pathetic existence, marching straight past her into my bedroom to drop my luggage. My so-called room was situated at the absolute dead end of the hallway, a cramped space barely measuring a dozen square meters, completely starved of natural sunlight all year round. When we were younger, this exact space was used as the family storage unit. It was only after I was forcefully dragged back from my grandfather's countryside home to attend school here that it was temporarily cleared out. Just to give me a place to sleep. Meanwhile, Lin Xiaoxiao's massive bedroom faced south right next to the master suite, spacious, sun-drenched, and luxurious. The systemic distribution of resources inside this toxic house had never, not even once, been fair or balanced. It was a glaring, undisputed slap in the face. I locked my door and immediately commenced a rigorous sweeps check of the room. The desk, the bookshelf, the wardrobe, and the deep cavity beneath the bed. I inspected every single square inch to guarantee that nothing had been tampered with or subtly bugged while I was away. Once satisfied, I fished out the cheap burner phone from deep inside my backpack, located an obscure, cluttered angle, and carefully camouflaged it amidst a pile of random junk on my bookshelf. The camera lens was precisely calibrated to face the entryway of the bedroom, with the recording feature activated and the entire device set to absolute silence, to ensure zero notification sounds or screen lights would leak out while filming. Having perfectly set up the bait, I threw myself onto the mattress, feigning a deep sleep while keeping my ears hyper-attuned, listening closely to track every single movement and whisper, reverberating out in the living room. At dinner, my mother had actually whipped up an elaborate feast across the table, a true miracle. When she called me out to eat, she even meticulously served food straight into my bowl, cooing, "Shout he on, look at how dangerously thin you've gotten. You're about to leave home soon." So make sure to gorge yourself. I forced the food down, but it tasted entirely like ash. My brain was actively executing a deep psychological analysis, calculating exactly what kind of horrific stunt they were plotting and when they would finally rip off their fake masks. Right after dinner, my father let out an authoritative cough, clearing his throat as if gearing up to deliver a profound lecture. Listen, Xiao Tian, the real reason we summoned you back this time. Well, there's a highly critical matter we desperately need to negotiate with you. Here it comes. I lifted my gaze, painting a look of pure, innocent confusion across my face. It's like this. Your sister's psychological state has been dangerously unstable recently. You already know the sheer catastrophe surrounding her Gaokao scores. Has completely shattered her sanity. Right now she's on the bed, pretending to be fast asleep, but my ears were sharply strained, desperately trying to catch every single sound, reverberating from the living room. For dinner, my mother had whipped up a massive feast, a historical rarity. When she summoned me out to eat, she even enthusiastically shoveled food onto my plate, cooing, "Lin Tian, you've gotten so thin. You're leaving home soon, so stuff yourself." I chewed mechanically without tasting a thing, my mind. They're true. Monstrous faces would finally be unmasked. Once the meal concluded, my father cleared his throat with a heavy cough, adopting his typical arrogant lecture. Posture. "Lin Tian, the real reason we summoned you back under this roof is because there is a critical matter we need to settle with you." And there it was. I raised my head, forcing a perfectly bewildered look onto my face. It's like this. Your younger sister's mental state has been a complete train wreck lately. You already know how severely that college entrance exam fiasco broke her spirit. Right now, she is in a terrible state right now. You already know how massive of an impact that college entrance exam had on him. He's currently completely devastated and overwhelmed by everything right now. Completely shattered, refusing to even step outside of her room. Your mother and I have discussed this thoroughly. Since you are her twin brother, you're the absolute closest person to her in the world. Can you please just dedicate more time to stay by her side, comforting and motivating her to get back on her feet? I quietly waited for them to finally lay down their cards. Sure enough, my mother instantly chimed in, her voice dripping with careful, probing hesitation. "Exactly, Xiao Tian. The two of you are twins, flesh of my flesh, connected by a profound, sacred bond of blood. What could possibly be wrong with giving your precious younger sister a little helping hand?" I maintained absolute silence, doing nothing but staring straight through them. The atmosphere turned suffocatingly tense for a brief second before Lin Xiao abruptly raised her head. Her eyes were bloodshot and brimming with tears, staring at me as she let out a broken, pathetic sob. "Brother, I genuinely admit that I was wrong. Okay? Over this past month, I have thoroughly reflected on my past behavior. Everything I did before was absolutely toxic, and I should have never treated you so horribly. Can you please just find it in your heart to grant me one final chance?" I came dangerously close to bursting out into a loud, hysterical roar of laughter. Her acting skills had seriously upgraded, but it was a damn shame that I was completely immune to her manipulation. I directly demanded to know what they ultimately wanted from me, forcing them to drop the pathetic charade. I had absolutely zero patience left to engage in their twisted, manipulative mind games. My parents exchanged a quick, calculating glance, as if silently confirming their battle plan. My father finally threw down his hand, revealing his ultimate play. "It's like this. Your mother and I have engineered a flawless strategy that will guarantee Xiao an elite path to university." I subtly cocked my eyebrow, silently gesturing for him to spill the rest. Xiao already confessed everything to us. The absolute truth behind those insane Gaokao scores. That bizarre, supernatural 10-point rule. You obviously comprehend it far better than we do. Between the two of you, there exists a terrifying, mystical twin connection. As long as you are physically tethered to her side, her scores will automatically skyrocket. My heart skipped a violent beat. That stupid brat had actually weaponized our darkest secret and handed it straight to them. My father stood up, striding aggressively until he was towering directly in front of me, his voice carrying an unyielding, authoritative weight that permitted zero defiance. Therefore, your mother and I have officially decided we need you to defer your enrollment at Tsinghua and Peking University for exactly 1 year. You will repeat your senior year, and next year, you will retake the Gaokao side by side with Xiao Xiao. When that time comes, she will easily cruise into an elite university as well. Our household will boast 2 legendary Tsinghua and Peking University scholars. Won't that bring immense, unparalleled glory to our family ancestry? I froze in sheer, unadulterated disbelief. It wasn't because your mother and I have already discussed this. We want you to see if you can postpone your enrollment at Tsinghua or Peking University for a year. Take a gap year and retake the exam next year alongside Lin Xiaoxiao. When that time comes, she will also secure admission into an elite institution. Our household will boast 2 Ivy League caliber students from Tsinghua and Peking University. Wouldn't that bring immense, legendary honor to our ancestors? I froze in absolute disbelief. Not because I was shocked by the sheer, unhinged absurdity of their demand, but rather because I was paralyzed by the shameless, absolute certainty with which they casually dropped it as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if completely sabotaging my entire future just to construct a perfect life for Lin Xiaoxiao was my absolute duty. Sensing an opening, my mother crept closer and aggressively grabbed my hands, her eyes flashing with disgusting, predatory calculation. Xiaodian, this arrangement doesn't hurt you in the slightest. You're already so incredibly gifted. So repeating a year means you'll easily ace the exam again next year anyway. When that time comes, you'll hold the legendary status of a back-to-back top scorer with an extra year of flawless preparation. Tsinghua and Peking University will literally be begging on their knees to recruit you. And on top of that, Xiao Xiao will also secure a brilliant, high-society future for herself. Isn't this a perfect win-win scenario for the entire family? My official admission letter has already been delivered. Why on earth should I force myself to repeat a year? My father gave an indifferent, dismissive wave of his hand. An admission letter is completely worthless. If you just refuse to show up for registration, the system automatically voids it. Xiaodian, you're her older brother. What is the big deal about making a tiny sacrifice for your younger sister? Once Xiao Xiao reaches the absolute peak of success in the future, she will obviously take care of you. A massive chunk of the millions she makes will be yours anyway. I had officially just listened to the most profoundly laughable joke on the entire planet. I stared back at them and said, I refuse. My father's face instantaneously turned pitch black with pure rage, and the fake, loving smile on my mother's face violently shattered. Lin Xiaoxiao abruptly snapped her head up, the pathetic pleading look in her eyes, instantly twisting into venomous, dark malice. My father towered over me, his voice dripping with dangerous, toxic authority. What the hell is wrong with your attitude today? Your mother and I are being incredibly patient, calmly negotiating with you. How dare you shoot us down without a second thought? You're aggressively demanding that I surrender my guaranteed spot at Tsinghua and Peking University just to babysit a pathetic fraud who could barely scrape together a miserable 157 points on her own? And then you expect me to let her parasite off my hard work, to smuggle her into an elite Ivy-tier institution? By what right? On the sole basis that she's my sister. You're her brother. Helping her is your biological duty. I have literally carried her on my back for 18 agonizing years, from our childhood to this exact day. You threw every piece of luxury and affection at her, while I was unceremoniously discarded in the countryside, like trash without a single person checking if I was dead or alive. Now that she has completely destroyed her own life through her own stupidity, you suddenly remember my existence? You want to hijack my future just to clean up her horrific mess? My father slammed his fist onto the table with a deafening crash. Lin Tian, watch your damn mouth. Who do you think you're talking to? You want to know my real attitude? It's right here. I am absolutely fucking done playing along. I spun on my heel and marched straight back toward my bedroom, as a psychotic, high-pitched screech erupted behind my back. A massive temper tantrum. Lin Tian, what exactly is your attitude right now? What attitude, you ask? Precisely. This zero fucks given attitude. Not happening. I turn on my heel and march back to my room, leaving their furious screams echoing behind me. It was the unhinged, psychotic shriek of Lin Xiaoxiao. Lin Tian, why on earth are you doing this to me? Those legendary exam scores were supposed to belong to me. Without me, you are absolute garbage. Lin Xiaoxiao, you better listen to me very carefully. Every single point on that exam was earned by my own hand, stroke by painstaking stroke. It has absolutely nothing to do with you. The fact that you could parasitically leech off my hard work was a cosmic fluke, not your own talent or capability. My life is not a bargaining chip for you to shamelessly hold over my head. Lin Xiaoxiao was instantly struck, completely speechless by my words, tears gushing from her eyes in a violent torrent, though whether it was from pure rage or absolute desperation, I couldn't care less. My mother lunged forward to shield her precious golden child, pointing her finger directly at my face. As she barked, Lin Tian, you've triggered your sister to the point of a mental breakdown. Do you have even a shred of humanity left? I didn't even bother wasting my breath arguing with these monsters. I slammed into my room and locked the door shut. Outside, the sounds of shattering porcelain erupted, intertwined with my father's furious roars, my mother's dramatic wailing, and Lin Xiaoxiao's piercing, hysterical shrieks. The entire apartment descended into a chaotic, boiling cauldron of toxicity. Leaning my back against the locked door, I closed my eyes and listened to the violent symphony, feeling a strange, absolute calmness wash over me. Tonight was merely the opening round. The true, lethal battlefield lay ahead. I had a gut-wrenching premonition that they would never throw in the towel this easily. Let them come. I have all the patience in the world. That entire night, I didn't sleep a single wink, staring blankly at the dark ceiling, while keeping my ears hyperalert. Around 2 a.m, a faint, sinister whispering drifted from right outside my door, sounding exactly like shadows plotting in the dark. I held my breath, straining to catch every single syllable. It was my parents. My mother kept her voice incredibly low, yet her venomous words cut through the silence with chilling clarity. Honey, why don't we strike right now while the brat is fast asleep? We can breach his room and confiscate all his critical documents without his national ID card and official university admission letter. Let's see how he plans to escape to Beijing. Look, his bedroom lights are completely out. He is definitely dead to the world. Let's execute the plan tonight before anything else goes sideways. Creeping, stealthy footsteps slowly advanced toward my door. My pulse began to race frantically, but I forced my body to remain completely motionless, perfectly mimicking the deep breathing of someone fast asleep. The doorknob silently twisted with a sharp click. Thank God, I had the foresight to lock it from the inside. A muffled curse hissed from my mother's lips, her voice dripping with venom. That little bastard actually locked the damn door, since I'd already locked it securely. Outside the door, my mother hissed out a muffled, low-voiced curse. That little brat actually deadbolted the damn door. Forget it. Let's handle this tomorrow. It's not like the brat can magically sprout wings and fly away anyway. As the sound of their stealthy footsteps gradually faded into the distance, I slowly pried my eyes open, staring straight up at the pitch-black ceiling. A cold, predatory smirk spread across my face in the darkness. As expected, they hit every single mark on my prediction list. They never had any intention of letting me escape this place. From the absolute split second my foot crossed the threshold of this house, I was marked as their prisoner. But what these absolute fools didn't realize was that I had already orchestrated my counter-strategy. In this psychological war, who is the true hunter and who is the helpless prey remains to be seen. The following morning, I tested the doorknob. Just as I suspected, the heavy wooden door had been completely bolted and locked from the outside. My pulse spiked with a violent jolt. Striding over to the window, I peered down at the sheer drop. The entire frame was completely reinforced with heavily welded anti-theft iron bars, rendering a stealthy escape absolutely impossible. The standard cellular reception bars were still active, but the home Wi-Fi signal had been completely severed from the router. I quickly utilized my secure cellular data to shoot a critical sitrep message to my future university roommates, confirming that I was alive, but advising them that the situation had taken a drastic, toxic turn. I explicitly told them to remain on absolute high alert. Around 10 in the morning, the heavy deadbolt clicked open. My mother strolled in carrying a lukewarm bowl of porridge. A deeply unsettling, sinister smirk plastered across her face. Starving yet? Force some food down your throat. So, have you finally come to your senses? I flat out refused to touch it. She aggressively slammed the bowl onto my desk, letting out a heavy sigh that dripped with unadulterated malice. Listen to me, Xiaodian. I'm going to give you a golden piece of maternal advice. A smart person always knows when to bow to superior force. Even if you miraculously manage to claw your way into Tsinghua and Peking University. So what? Who is going to fund your exorbitant tuition and basic living expenses? Do you genuinely believe your father, and I will ever spare you a single cent? Without financial backing, you won't even be able to set foot on campus. In the end, won't you just have to crawl back here with your tail between your legs? Besides, whether that precious admission letter of yours remains intact is highly debatable at this point. She paused, her eyes narrowing. If you choose to be a good, obedient boy, retake your senior year, and next year, we will gladly throw our full financial support behind you. But if you choose to remain defiant, she intentionally left the threat hanging in the air, but her sinister implication was blindingly obvious. I maintained an absolute, icy silence. The exact moment she stepped out and the door slammed shut, I heard the heavy click of the lock spinning back into place. From this precise second, I was officially under house arrest, completely cut off from the world. Throughout the course of that first grueling day, I managed to maintain a flawless, calculated composure. However, by the dawn of the second day, a suffocating wave of anxiety began to claw at my chest. It wasn't born out of terror, but from the agonizing realization that time was rapidly slipping through my fingers. The official university registration deadline was aggressively closing in on me. I desperately needed to engineer a way to smash through this deadlock. I'd been locked from the outside. Right then and there, I realized I was officially under house arrest. On the very first day, I managed to keep my composure. But by the second day, panic began to creep in, not out of raw fear, but because time was relentlessly ticking away. The official university registration date was rapidly approaching, and I desperately needed to find a way out, break free, and make my escape. By the dawn of the third day, I decided to risk it all on a dangerous gamble. At 2 in the morning, while the entire house was dead to the world, I quietly slipped out of bed, weaponizing the tiny metal nail file attached to a basic pair of nail clippers to meticulously pick the lock of my bedroom door. This antiquated, low-tier lock system wasn't too difficult to crack. I sweated over it for about 10 grueling minutes until a faint, satisfying metallic click finally echoed. The door swung open. Holding my breath, I executed each agonizing step with extreme caution. Creeping into the pitch-black living room, I fumbled blindly through the shadows, skirting along the edge of the wall to advance toward the main exit. My heart was hammering violently against my ribs, threatening to explode right on my chest. The worn wooden flooring occasionally let out a subtle, high-pitched creak. With every single microscopic sound that vibrated through the air, I instantly froze in place, scanning the dark to confirm that no one had been awakened, before slowly forcing myself to advance another step forward. The exact millisecond my fingertips were about to brush against the handle of the front door, the overhead lights violently flashed on, blinding me. My entire body turned to solid ice. My father was stationed at the far end of the hallway, his knuckles white as he gripped a heavy wooden club, his face completely pale with rage. He had clearly been lying in wait for me, trying to make a run for it. I offered zero explanations, instantly spinning around to bolt back to my room, but it was already too late. He charged at me like a feral animal, closing the distance instantly. My mother and Lin Xiaoxiao had also emerged from the shadows at some unknown point, standing on the sidelines like cold, silent specters, watching the violence unfold. Not a single soul uttered a word to intervene. Only when my father completely exhausted his physical energy did he finally halt, gasping heavily for air. Let me make this crystal clear to you. Lin Tian, for the rest of your miserable life. You will never, under any circumstances, escape the walls of this house unless you sign those papers to repeat your senior year. I lay sprawled on the cold floor, my entire body trembling. Uncontrollably, not from a single shred of fear, but from pure, unadulterated fury. 18 years of suffocating, pin-up resentment was right on the verge of erupting into absolute madness, but I forcefully suppressed it. It wasn't the ideal moment yet. My collection of evidence wasn't airtight, and my final trap had not yet been fully sprung. Within moments, I was violently dragged back into my room and thrown onto the bed. The door was securely slammed shut and reinforced with a brand new, heavy-duty padlock on the outside, rendering it completely unpickable from within. I lay flat on the mattress, my back burning with sharp, blistering pain, but that physical agony only served to hone my focus into a razor-sharp edge. Over the course of the following 2 days, I behaved like an absolute model prisoner, completely ceasing all desperate attempts to break out. I ate every meal and slept on schedule, putting on a perfect facade of broken submission. My parents blindly swallowed the bait, believing they had finally broken my spirit, and their intense surveillance gradually began to slacken. However, the door remained securely bolted, and I was still completely barred from stepping outside. I strategically weaponized these 48 hours to meticulously map out their daily routines and schedule. I documented every single detail, pay extremely close attention to their daily schedules, and document every single, memorizing exactly when each of them went to sleep and the precise moment they woke up. Every single microscopic detail was etched deeply into my memory as I patiently waited for the perfect tactical opening. On the 4th night, they finally made their move. At exactly 2:07 a.m., the distinct metallic click of the padlock echoed. It wasn't a cautious, testing sound, but the deliberate noise of someone unbolting the door. I squeezed my eyes shut and maintained a steady, heavy breathing pattern, feigning a deep slumber while every single nerve in my body was coiled like a lethal spring. The door creaked open, followed by incredibly faint, stealthy footsteps, as if they were terrified of shattering my sleep. 2 targets, I calculated, instantly based on the distinct rhythm of their breathing. One was my mother, the other my father. They crept straight toward my study desk and began a desperate, frantic search. I remained entirely frozen in my deep sleep act, though my heart pulse was involuntarily accelerating. I knew with absolute certainty what they were hunting for: my national identity card and official university admission letter. These 2 items were my ultimate keys to escaping this living hell and, conversely, the exact bargaining chips they needed to chain me down forever. The frantic rustling dragged on for several agonizing minutes, until I caught the harsh whisper of my mother lowering her voice. "It's not here. Where on earth do you think he hid it? Search every single nook and cranny. It has to be somewhere inside this room. It's not like he could have smuggled it outside." They aggressively ripped open every desk drawer, tore through my bookshelf, and ransacked my backpack. They even went as far as rifling through the pockets of my hanging jackets and pants. Then I felt a shadow approach the edge of the bed, pausing silently for a moment, clearly debating whether to tear open my pillow. "Did you find it yet?" "Shoo, quiet. Don't wake the brat up." Lin Xiaoxiao suddenly barged into the room, her impatient footsteps echoing significantly louder than our parents'. It was glaringly obvious she didn't give a damn whether she woke me up or not. I could sense her towering directly over my mattress, staring down at me with a sharp, calculating gaze that felt as cold and venomous as a viper. I could almost feel her icy, shallow breath brushing against my skin. Then, her voice sliced through the dark, menacing and utterly convinced. "Cut the pathetic act. I know damn well you're awake, Lin Tian." Lin Xiaoxiao didn't waste another second talking, immediately throwing herself into the frantic search. Her destructive actions were infinitely more vicious and reckless than our parents'. She violently swept the books off my shelves, slamming them onto the floor one by one, before ripping the drawers completely out of their slots. "Where's your ID card?" became significantly more violent and aggressive. My parents' books were being ruthlessly ripped from the shelves and thrown onto the ground, one by one. Every single drawer was violently yanked completely open, proving beyond a doubt. My national identity card was buried deep inside the hidden lining of my pillowcase, while my admission letter was folded into a microscopic square and meticulously sewn into the interior fabric lining of my suitcase. I genuinely calculated that they would never detect them, but I had drastically underestimated the absolute, ravenous lunacy of Lin Xiaoxiao. She violently ripped my pillow off the mattress and began aggressively clawing through the fabric inch by inch. Her savage methods were exactly like a ruthless prison guard searching for contraband, leaving absolutely zero blind spots untouched the moment her fingertips brushed against that specific layer of the lining. Her hands abruptly froze. An instant later, she let out a piercing, ecstatic shriek of pure euphoria. I fucking found it. My heart violently jolted, yet I forced my body to remain completely paralyzed. Next, she lunged, like a rabid animal, toward my suitcase, ruthlessly dumping every single personal item onto the floor before violently tearing into the interior lining. The agonizing sound of shredding fabric pierced through the silent room. Her sharp nails clawed relentlessly back and forth across the tattered mesh until her fingers finally locked onto the rigid plastic edge. At that exact moment, I couldn't stomach the charade for another second. I bolted upright, slamming my hand down onto the bedside light switch. The sudden brightness revealed Lin Xiaoxiao, standing triumphantly over my ruined suitcase, her fist tightly clenching a thick paper envelope, the exact official envelope sealing my elite university admission notice. The expression plastered across her face looked as though she had just unearthed a legendary treasure, overflowing with repulsive greed and manic excitement. I locked my eyes onto the three of them, my voice echoing with absolute sub-zero temperature as I demanded to know what on earth they were doing. In the dead of night, the three predators glinted at each other, realizing the mask was completely off, so I didn't bother faking it anymore either. My father violently slammed my identity card down onto the desk, his voice booming with toxic, overbearing authority. Fine, we're done playing mind games with you. Xiao already confessed the absolute truth to us. As long as your pathetic body is anchored right here, her scores will magically hit the ceiling. This supernatural connection is the ultimate destiny between you two siblings. Accept your damn fate. Xiaodian, just listen to your mother and repeat. Your senior year. This arrangement doesn't harm your future in the slightest. You're a certified genius, so you'll easily secure another top score next year anyway. By then, Xiao will also secure her ticket into high society, with 2 elite Ivy-tier scholars graduating from our bloodline. Isn't this a flawless, mutually beneficial masterpiece for everyone? I have already made my stance crystal clear. I am not doing it. I stood up, lunging forward to reclaim my stolen identity card, but my father violently shoved me back. I stumbled backward for 2 chaotic steps, crashing brutally into the solid wall. The raw injuries on my back flared with blinding, suffocating pain. My father aggressively closed the distance, his face inches from mine, radiating a suffocating, tyrannical menace. Do you genuinely believe you have a single shred of free will in this matter? You aren't going anywhere. Without your national identity card and without this official admission notice, you can completely forget about setting foot inside Tsinghua or Peking University. Your only option is to be a good, compliant little dog, staying locked inside this house to repeat your classes. Once you finish writing her exams next year, admissions letter, meaning no acceptance notification, you won't be able to go to Tsinghua or Peking University. All you can do now is submissively stay at home and repeat the year, waiting until you complete your exams next year. You'll still belong to the elite ranks of Tsinghua and Peking University, so it's not like you're losing anything. I took a long, deep breath, forcing down the white-hot rage threatening to consume my sanity. It still wasn't the ideal moment to strike back. I required even more definitive evidence. I stared at them, asking, so you orchestrated this midnight raid just to confiscate my legal identity and future? My mother let out a sharp, mocking sneer, completely dropping her fake persona. Confiscate? What a dramatic word. Everything. in this household falls under our direct jurisdiction. You're still just a dependent. Child, your national identity card is far too critical an asset for a kid, so it's only logical that we safeguard it for you. I lock my gaze onto Lin Xiaoxiao. She was slowly slipping the official admission notice out of its paper envelope, her face completely twisted into the smug, arrogant grin of a triumphant avenger. She hoisted the beautiful certificate high into the air, like a prized war trophy. Then, she executed a horrific act that will remain permanently burned into my retinas for the rest of my life. Gripping the premium paper with both hands, her eyes burning with a manic, obsessive hatred, she stared directly into my eyes and slowly, deliberately ripped it down the center. A loud, violent shredding noise echoed, a sharp and piercing sound that felt like the snapping of a physical spine. Yet, her sadistic hunger was far from satisfied. She stacked the pieces, tearing them again and again until they were reduced to a pile of worthless confetti, fluttering through the air like a sick snowfall before scattering across the dirty floor. Every single motion of her hands was agonizingly slow. The glorious gateway to my brand new life was being systematically obliterated, shredded into absolute nothingness right before my eyes. Lin Xiaoxiao studied my rigid expression, bursting into a hysterical, unhinged cackle. Your admission letter is officially dead. Let's see how you plan to register at campus now, big brother. For the rest of your miserable life, you will serve as nothing but a stepping stone to fund my greatness. I'm going to drag you down to rot with me in this toxic swamp forever. Her entire frame was violently twitching, her matted hair flying wild like an absolute lunatic. By what right? Are you superior to me? By what right does everyone shower you with praise, while I'm left to choke on the mockery of others? Why do you get to escape to Tsinghua and Peking University while I'm stuck in this house being ridiculed? The legendary fruits of your labor should have been mine from the very start. Heavy tears gushed from her eyes, yet they didn't stem from pain or grief, but from pure, unadulterated malice, insane jealousy, and psychotic obsession. But in that exact heartbeat, her pitch abruptly dropped into a low, hollow whisper, sounding as if she were muttering to herself, yet ensuring. Every word penetrated deep into my psyche. Do you have even the slightest concept of the sheer terror I've been enduring? From our absolute childhood, I've always been. Do you have any absolute idea how utterly terrified I was? From the time I was a helpless child up until now, I painfully aware that my stellar academic achievements were completely fake, stolen directly from you. Her face violently distorted as she reminisced, crying that before every major exam, she was scared to death, petrified that one fateful day, I might suddenly refuse to sit for the exams, or that on another day, I would perform horribly and everyone would instantly unmask her as a completely useless fraud. Sobbing hysterically, she confessed how much she loathed me, hating me simply because I was born infinitely smarter than her. Hilariously, she actually genuinely believed that I never had to put in a single shred of effort to secure such god-tier grades. But what I despise even more is my own reflection. The second I am severed from you, I am absolutely nothing. Because of that, you are permanently barred from leaving. You must rot right here, forever serving as my personal stepping stone. That is the only way I can keep surviving. I stared cold-eyed at her, the monstrous entity I had labeled as my younger sister for 18 agonizing years. For the absolute first time, I realized just how incredibly pathetic she truly was. But being a pathetic excuse of a human being is not a valid justification for me to grant her absolution. Being pathetic will never serve as an acceptable excuse for her to ruthlessly annihilate my entire future. Our parents stood idly by on the sidelines, watching Lin Xiaoxiao's manic, psychotic breakdown unfold, without a single intent to intervene. In fact, their faces actually flushed with a disgusting sense of approval, as if she had just executed a highly commendable and satisfying masterpiece. Scanning this grotesque scene, a profound wave of sheer absurdity and dark pity washed over me. This was my biological family. This was the reality of their so-called sacred bond of blood. I slowly lowered my gaze to the shredded confetti littering the floor my shoulders beginning to tremble violently. They blindly assumed I was weeping, projecting that I had finally suffered an absolute psychological collapse. My mother let out a condescending sneer, her voice dripping with a sickening tone of false charity. "Oh, cut. The dramatic waterworks. Stop crying over spilled milk. It's not like the world is ending. You'll just repeat the year and smash the exam. One more time next year, simple as that. Take this brutal lesson to heart, and make sure you behave like an obedient boy." From now on, I offered zero verbal response, merely crouching down onto the cold floor as my trembling hands began meticulously gathering up the mutilated remnants of my admission notice. Witnessing my seemingly shattered, miserable state, the arrogant smirk on Lin Xiaoxiao's face grew infinitely more toxic. "Weep. Cry your pathetic eyes out. You completely deserve this. It's her absolute destiny." Then, I slowly raised my head and locked eyes with her. She instantly flinched, because she realized that within my gaze, there wasn't a single trace of tears. Only a sub-zero, terrifying hatred coupled with a razor-sharp, fleeting smirk. Completely terrified by that ghostly smile, she instinctively took a frantic step backward. For a split second, he was completely paralyzed with fear by that chilling smile, instinctively taking a sharp step backward, stuttering out, "What the hell are you laughing at?" I slowly stood back up, my voice incredibly raspy yet filled with an uncanny, sub-zero calmness. "Nothing. I was simply thinking that your little psychological meltdown just now was a flawless, absolute masterpiece. If you ever fail to parasite your way through life, you could genuinely make a killing as a toxic drama actress." I abruptly cut my sentence short, deliberately putting on a perfect show of absolute, broken despair as I slumped onto the edge of the mattress, letting my eyes go completely hollow while muttering mindlessly to myself, scanning my utterly devastated state. The remaining shards of suspicion on Lin Xiaoxiao's face completely melted away, replaced entirely by the sickening, arrogant euphoria of a triumphant tyrant. "So, you finally know what real terror feels like, huh? Too bad you didn't learn your damn place a whole lot sooner." My father let out a cold, venomous grunt, casually sliding my stolen national identity card deep into his pocket. "All right, clear out. Everyone back to bed. From this exact millisecond forward, this ungrateful brat isn't going to set a single foot outside of this room." The three predators, radiating the immense satisfaction of having successfully completed their mission, strutted out of my bedroom. Before making her grand exit, my mother ensured the deadbolt was securely locked from the outside. The subtle click of the heavy padlock echoing through the hall was faint, yet it felt like a violent, shattering thunderbolt slamming right into my chest. I was officially caged. The small room plunged back into complete, suffocating darkness. I sat frozen on the edge of the mattress, listening intently to their retreating footsteps fading into the distance, waiting for the entire house to return to a dead, tranquil silence. Once the coast was clear, I stood up, striding directly toward my bookshelf. Digging through a messy pile of seemingly worthless, dusty junk, my fingers locked onto my hidden backup phone had always been. Those absolute fools completely ransacked my room, yet their primitive brains totally overlooked checking the one corner they assumed was just discarded trash. The recording feature had successfully captured every single second of Lin Xiaoxiao's manic frenzy as she systematically shredded my university admission certificate, while our parents stood idly by, observing with icy, sadistic amusement. Confession, laying bare the monstrous conspiracy they had proudly admitted to. Every single shred of their criminality was perfectly archived within this high-definition video. I immediately uploaded the raw footage to a secure cloud server, generating multiple encrypted backups to ensure it could never be purged or erased. Next, I quickly edited a short, highly impactful sequence of the horror, launching it onto social media with the viral caption, "This is the reality of the toxic, abusive household. I'm currently desperately trying to escape." The moment the post went live, I dialed emergency services. "I want to report an act of crime. I'm currently being held under illegal forced confinement by my biological family." The emergency operator calmly requested my exact coordinates and the fundamental details of my hostage situation. I answered every single question with icy precision. The operator assured me that an active police dispatch unit was being deployed. Backup smartphone that had been stationed there all along. Of the smartphone and swiftly buried it back beneath the chaotic pile of junk before sliding onto the mattress. My chest was hammering with localized adrenaline, but I forced my physical shell to project absolute serenity. I possessed zero knowledge of how long the police response unit would take to arrive, nor could I anticipate what twisted scenario might unfold before they breached the apartment. But I knew one absolute truth the second I survived. This single night, the entire chessboard would be permanently flipped. The seconds dragged by like agonizing hours as the bleak horizon outside the barred window gradually began to bleed dawn's first light. My eyes remained wide open, staring relentlessly at the ceiling, my ears hyper-attuned to every microscopic, lingering vibration within the silent apartment. At exactly 4:23 a.m., the sound of creeping footsteps vibrated through the wall. It was Lynn. Xiao Xiao. Her deliberate steps were incredibly faint, as if she were desperately attempting not to alert a single soul. Yet in the dead silence of the morning, it was glaringly audible. Her shadow halted right outside my bedroom door. I instantly cut off my breathing, turning into a statue. The distinct rasp of the lock echoed. She was infiltrating my space yet again. I squeezed my eyelids shut, seamlessly slipping back into my deep sleep charade, though the erratic thumping of my heart felt like a war drum pounding against my eardrums. She glided straight toward my bed, looming over me in a paralyzed silence for what felt like an eternity. I could literally feel the heat of her malicious, laser-like gaze drilling into my skin, radiating intense paranoia and heavy suspicion. Then, she began to aimlessly prowl around the perimeter of the room, her erratic footsteps shifting closer, then retreating, mimicking a feral predator pacing around its confined territory. I had zero clue what specific item she was hunting for, but a dark, overwhelming premonition gripped my mind. The heavy pacing abruptly ceased right in front of the messy bookshelf. My chest violently tightened. The chaotic sound of shuffling objects echoed through the room. She was actively plowing through that specific pile of discarded junk. My fingers instinctively clenched the corner of the bedsheet into a tight fist, my mind racing at supersonic speeds to calculate my options if she unearthed the hidden surveillance phone. What would be my immediate counter-strategy? Suddenly, the frantic rustling abruptly stopped. The oxygen in the room instantly froze into a solid block of ice. I could practically hear the deafening cadence of my own pulse echoing in the silence. What the hell is this supposed to be? I knew instantly that my hidden trap had just been uncovered. Game over. I violently bolted upright. In that exact microsecond, I locked eyes with her as she clutched my secondary smartphone tightly in her fist. The screen was still brilliantly illuminated, a flashing crimson that actively broadcasting the real-time recording. The expression plastered across her face rapidly devolved from sheer confusion to blinding shock, before twisting into a mask of pure, unadulterated savagery. You're secretly recording us, you piece of trash. She let out a blood-curdling shriek, lunging directly at me like a rabid, psychotic animal. I had zero time to evade her feral assault as her sharp, unmanicured nails clawed directly across my face, leaving a trail of burning, blistering pain. Reacting instantly, I forcefully clamped my fingers around her wrists, and the two of us violently crashed onto the floor, locked in a brutal struggle. Burning with agonizing pain, I desperately gripped its wrist as the two of us violently wrestled with each other. Even though she was a girl, at this moment, she was completely driven, insane, possessing an absolutely terrifying level of strength. As we crashed around, we knocked over the nightstand, and the lamp went plunging straight down to the floor, shattering into a million pieces. Because the massive commotion was far too loud, my parents were instantly shocked. Awake, my dad burst into the room, and upon witnessing this chaotic scene, without uttering a single word, he aggressively shoved me aside. "How dare you? Lay a hand on your sister." Clutching my head and panting heavily, I desperately responded, "I didn't hit her. She's the one who attacked me first." Lin Xiaoxiao had already scrambled up from the floor, her hands still clutching that specific phone. She quickly rushed to hide behind my father's back, as if finding her ultimate sanctuary. "Dad, he was secretly recording us. He caught everything we did on video. Ha ha ha." My father's expression twisted instantly. He violently snatched the phone out of her hands, staring intently at the glowing screen. His face grew darker and more ominous by the second, as the veins bulged furiously on his forehead. "Tomorrow? You got some nerve." He forcefully hurled the phone down against the floor. The fragile screen shattered instantly, but he didn't stop there. He ruthlessly stomped on it multiple times with his foot, continuing until the entire device completely transformed into nothing more than a mangled heap of scrap metal. I quietly stared at the crushed phone, without a single shred of panic or fear rising in my heart. That was because the video had already been completely uploaded to the cloud system. This particular phone was nothing more than an empty shell. However, I deliberately hid that fact, instead putting on an act and putting on a face of sheer, absolute despair, as if my very last life-saving straw had just been brutally ripped away from me. My mother had also arrived by then, and after fully assessing the chaotic situation, her face turned pale with rage. "Let me tell you something, Lin Tian. This matter is far from over tonight. You better stay right here and behave yourself. Don't you dare think about going anywhere. If you dare post this online, I will make you suffer the horrific consequences." He fiercely scolded me and stormed off, but before leaving, he explicitly ordered my mother to guard me with extreme vigilance. "Xiao Tian, you have truly disappointed me beyond words. Everything we are doing is solely for the sake of this family. Why on earth can't you understand that? Whatever, just stay here and self-reflect on your actions." With that, she left too, and the heavy door was locked from the outside once again. This time, he even dragged something massive to completely barricade the door. I could clearly hear the sound of heavy furniture being scraped across the floor. Left entirely alone in the room amidst the absolute ruins and chaos, I leaned back against the corner of the wall, gently touching my badly swollen face. I thought to myself, they have absolutely no idea that the police are already on their way here, nor do they know that the devastating video has already been blasted across the internet. They genuinely believe that destroying a single phone solves everything, entirely clueless that the true, catastrophic storm has only just begun. As the morning light bled heavily into the room, around 6 in the morning, I suddenly caught the frantic ringing of my father's phone, followed immediately by his completely panicked voice. "What do you mean video? Who the hell leaked that?" "Moments latte." My mother's piercing shriek echoed through the walls, accompanied by the hysterical wailing of Lin Xiaoxiao. The entire household devolved into absolute, chaotic madness. I knew right then that the video had officially gone viral. I lost all track of time. It could have been 30 minutes, or perhaps an entire hour, before I suddenly heard heavy, thunderous pounding at the front door. The knocking was incredibly violent and urgent, punctuated by an authoritative shout from the hallway. "Open up. We've received a severe criminal complaint." "Who on earth called the authorities, Lin? What do we do now?" "Don't panic. Hide that worthless brat immediately. Just lie and tell them he isn't even home." I listened intently to their desperate whispering from inside my cage. "Hide him? Where the hell do we hide him?" Occupants inside, listen carefully. "Open this door immediately. Failure to comply will result in a forced, tactical entry." Ultimately, my father's nerves completely shattered. I heard the heavy front door unbolt, followed by a chaotic barrage of tense arguments. I couldn't make out the exact words being thrown around, but I could easily sense my father frantically stuttering out excuses, desperately trying to sweep everything under the rug. A few minutes later, the heavy barricade blocking my bedroom door was aggressively dragged away, and the door was thrown wide open. Two law enforcement officers in full uniform stood right at the threshold. The exact second their eyes locked onto my pathetic state, their brows furrowed in deep concern. The younger officer stepped forward instantly. "Are you the individual who reported this incident, Lin Tian?" I nodded silently. He closely examined the raw lacerations on my face and my severely swollen jaw before scanning the absolute disarray and destruction inside my room. His expression instantly hardened into grim seriousness. "You're severely injured. Who inflicted this violence upon you?" My father interjected frantically. "Officers, please. This is purely a private domestic matter. Discipline my own son is well within my parental rights, isn't it?" The senior officer slowly pivoted, glaring coldly at him. "A domestic matter? Forcible unlawful confinement, and the systemic deprivation of basic human liberties? You honestly consider that a casual domestic issue?" We received an urgent distress call stating that a young man was being held hostage inside this apartment by his own relatives, barred from escaping. Furthermore, you call this a simple family matter? We received an urgent distress call stating that someone is being unlawfully detained and locked inside by their own family, completely stripped of their freedom. Furthermore, we also intercepted a highly incriminating video file. Take a look at this footage yourself. Sir, you honestly dare to label this atrocious behavior as a casual domestic affair? The heavy screen displayed the vivid footage of my parents and Lin Xiaoxiao systematically ransacking my private sanctuary, showcasing the psychotic frenzy of Lin Xiaoxiao as she ruthlessly shredded my university admission notice. The exact second he saw it, my father's smug face completely drained of all color, turning deathly pale. My mother's legs began trembling so violently that she nearly collapsed onto the hard floor. Meanwhile, Lin Xiaoxiao was cowering helplessly in a dark corner, her hair a matted mess and her eyes entirely hollow, looking exactly like a repulsive insect that had been utterly crushed underfoot. "Young man, we require you to accompany us to the station to officially log your statement." I nodded silently, standing up and deliberately stepping right over the mutilated remnants of my future scattered across the floor. As I marched toward the exit, as I passed my father, he abruptly thrust his hand out to grasp my shoulder, but the officer instantly slapped his arm away with extreme prejudice. "Step back, sir. You are currently under active investigation for forced illegal confinement, an intentional infliction of bodily harm. You'd better start cooperating honestly with us right now." The expression on his face looked as though he had just swallowed a venomous fly, a toxic cocktail of boiling rage, sheer terror, and utter helplessness. I didn't waste a single glance on his pathetic form, walking straight out through that cursed front door. Without looking back, from behind me, my mother's hysterical wailing pierced the air. "You cannot ruthlessly turn your back on us like this. We are your biological parents. If you drag us through the mud like this, how on earth are we supposed to show our faces in society ever again?" I abruptly halted my steps. "You monsters never treated me like a human being in the first place. Now, it is officially your turn to choke on the exact same poison you fed me. Lin Tian, you will bleed for this. I will never grant you absolution. Get your filthy hands off me." I turned my eyes onto her heavily distorted, psychotic face, stating with absolute, sub-zero serenity, "Lin Xiaoxiao, etch these words into your microscopic brain. From this exact second forward, our biological ties are completely severed forever." With that final declaration, I pivoted and stepped directly into the police cruiser, never looking back a single time. By the time I finished filing the detailed criminal report at the local police precinct, the sun was already high in the midday sky. Given the airtight video evidence and your documented medical injuries, your father is officially facing severe charges of aggression, assault, and unlawful hostage confinement. He will be prosecuted to the absolute limit of the law. As for Lin Xiaoxiao, she is facing charges for the malicious destruction of private property. Even though that academic document was issued by the university, it constitutes your exclusive legal personal property. Therefore, she will face the corresponding legal hammer for her actions. But what about my official admission notice? Is it still possible to secure an emergency replacement from the administration? The ranking officer assured me that I needed to contact the university authorities directly to initiate the query, promising that the precinct would provide me with all the necessary legal certification. Mom, the responding officer noted that I would need to establish contact with the academy to inquire further and assured that they would fully assist me in obtaining the necessary supporting paperwork to verify the incident. I nodded in gratitude. Walking out of the precinct, the blinding midday sun blazed down on me. Standing on the stone steps, I closed my eyes and tilted my face toward the sky, feeling as if I had finally woken up from a seemingly endless, horrific nightmare. From this exact moment on, I would be the absolute master of my own destiny, and I would never allow a single soul to manipulate my life ever again.